Good morning. You're listening to FloorDaily.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Dr. Bob Peoples, Executive Director with CARE, the Corporate America Recovery Effort. Bob, how you doing?
Good morning, Kemp. I'm doing great. It's always good to chat with you.
Good to catch up with you. So I wanted to talk to you about this news that came out last week about the differential assessment for carpet in California. We'll get to that in just a minute. First, a little background on you. You spent most of your career in flooring, started out selling string at Solutia. Then you went to CRI as their head of sustainability. Then you went to CARE for 4 years. And then for 4.5 years, you went to Washington and took a job with the Green Chemistry Institute, and then came back to CARE and have been there 11 years since, right?
That is correct. My career has been an interesting journey. Enjoyed every minute of my journey so far, and looking forward to continuing for an extended period of time because the challenges that we face, the people that we work with, are tremendously energizing, and I just love what I do. I'm a fortunate individual.
Well, I'm glad to hear you plan to work a little bit longer. You're a little bit older than I am. We're seeing people left and right retire. Glad we'll be able to work together for a little bit longer.
Listen, Kemp, I've got 2 young grandchildren, one to turn 4 next week and one that'll be 6.5 shortly, and they keep me going. So my goal is to keep my body healthy and my mind sharp so I can be with them as long as possible and continue to tackle these important problems.
All right, let's go back to your job. I guess you've been earning your pay the last couple of years. There's been a lot of things going on, especially in California. Let's start off with this differential assessment. Tell us what's going on there.
The law changed several years ago requiring us to put a differential assessment in based on material type. We spent almost 2 years analyzing data and information and came up with the approach that we would differentiate based on carpet broadloom versus carpet tile. And that was accepted by Cal Recycle. Of course, we've had to increase the assessment a couple times already since that went into place, with the new requirement under the new plan that we maintain a minimum of a 6-month reserve in our fund balance. It's necessary for us to increase the differential assessment yet again to achieve that. Cal Recycle's requirement means we've got to have roughly $15 to $16 million in reserve at any given point in time, and they gave us until the end of 2025 to build to that level of reserve. So Cal Recycle directed us on April 1st to increase the assessment to where it is today. That was insufficient to achieve the new reserve under the newly approved plan. So we've had to go back and request another assessment increase, which they just approved. And broadloom will be going from the current 58 cents per square yard up to 70 cents per square yard. We do differentiate if there's recycled content, which means there's basically a 2-cent lower price for recycled content. And then carpet tile itself is going up to 99 cents a square yard, and there'll be a 2-cent discount when the recycled content is greater than or equal to 10%. So pretty significant increases.
Yeah, actually, it's 21% increase for broadloom and 36% increase. I remember when this first got started in California, was the first state to have this type of program. It was a nickel a yard. So it's substantially bigger than that, isn't it?
It's a dramatic increase. One could argue initially that with an assessment of a nickel a square yard, it didn't matter whether it's broadloom or carpet tile, that really wasn't going to have a big influence on the buying decision, especially if you're spending thousands of dollars for a purchase. You're talking about a relatively small increment. But as it's gone from a nickel to a dime to 20, then 25 cents, then 35 cents, and then the big differential spread, it's starting to have an impact. For example, broadloom carpet at 70 cents a square yard. Well, if a builder comes in and buys 10,000 square yards of material, low-end market material, that's a substantial assessment that he has to pay at a time when he can go out and buy alternative floor coverings, especially LVT, buy it at nominally the same price as carpet, pay no fee, and then get 2 or 3 tenement cycles out of it, whereas, the carpet typically gets changed out when the tenant moves out. So it is starting to have an impact, especially on the low end of the market. And, we believe that about 40% of the market in California is actually, the apartment, the condo end of the market. So big leverage there.
Is Cal Recycle going to start looking at other flooring types and, consider that they too may need to have some kind of assessment?
Kemp, you asked a very interesting question. In fact, we've had 3 carpet laws passed over the last decade in California, and a 4th one is in discussions right now. It's referred to as AB 863, and one of the provisions of 863 is to include all floor covering. I mean, all floor covering, and it adds synthetic turf and pads. So it's a comprehensive flooring bill. And part of the logic is to level the playing field. So I think the odds personally that 863 will pass in 2024 are very, very high. In fact, I place money on the fact that law will get passed. Exactly what provisions will be included, we don't know yet, but there's a lot being considered. One of which is to convert this from a consumer pays to a producer pays, which means if that were to happen, there'd be no more visible fee at the consumer level. The carpet industry or the flooring industry would be responsible to pay all the costs associated with this program. And for the sake of your listeners, I'll just let you know that this program in 2022 cost about $32 million. So it's not a small program.
I know we're talking about California right now, but if you broaden your scope and start talking about New York, that's exactly what that's already passed, and that's being paid by a producer, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Kemp. They passed their law. It goes into effect in 2026. It covers carpeting, padding, and it covers synthetic turf. And it is a producer pays. So we are in conversations with the Synthetic Turf Council and the Carpet Cushion Council right now to figure out how we might work together, how we're going to deliver a program that can cover all 3 of these materials. And oh, by the way, some of the requirements under the law are what we might say are extremely aggressive in terms of what has to be accomplished in a relatively short period of time. Personally, I think some of it is unrealistic. It's the law at this point in time. So we're engaged in what I would describe as a very productive conversation with the New York State equivalent to Cal Recycle, the Department of Environmental Commission. Their eyes are open. They understand there's a great deal of complexity here, and we don't have all the answers. So a very healthy dialogue is taking place. In fact, we have another call this week with them.
And Bob, tell us what else you're working on.
Yeah, Ken, for the first time in over 12 years, we will be implementing a dues increase. It's a relatively small percentage, and if you think about it, over the course of time, it's very small because it's more than a decade in coming. But in the new invoices that'll be going out in the next couple of weeks, our members will see small increases in their membership dues. If they have any specific questions about the details of any of this, they're always welcome to reach out.
All right, Bob. Well, thanks for spending time with our listeners and telling us what's going on with this differential assessment in California. You've been talking to Bob Peoples, the Executive Director with CARE, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.